call. If you wish to test your microphone or camera, please raise your hand using the green raise hand icon and we'll give you the floor. Thank you. Jordan, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Helen.
Good
Mr.
afternoon, sir. Yes, it is.
Can you hear me and see me?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you. Please enable your camera.
Now you can see me.
Yes, now I can see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Participants will now connect for the meeting and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished delegates and participants. Welcome back to the second day of this meeting. Before we hand it over to the co-chair, we'd like to take the opportunity to re-show the Interprify user video. It's a very short introduction to use of the platform, and we will now show that.
Introduction to our virtual meeting with Remote Simultaneous Interpretation, or RSI. Since this may be the first time for some of you using an RSI platform, here are some tips to ensure the best experience possible for all participants and interpreters. Please try and meet as many of these guidelines as possible before you take the floor, as it will drastically improve your connection, sound, and video. If you are not able to do so for this meeting, please bear them in mind for your next virtual meeting. The first tip is to always use a laptop or desktop computer, not a phone or tablet, as these are usually not powerful enough, and to plug your computer directly into your modem with an Ethernet cable. This will greatly improve your connection speed and stability, and reduce the risk of your sound and video cutting out. Secondly, please use a headset while speaking, such as the one shown here, ideally with a noise-cancelling microphone. This will eliminate echo and feedback, and will make your sound crisper and clearer for all. If you don't have one to hand right now, as a temporary measure, you could use earbuds with an integrated microphone, or headphones and your computer's inbuilt microphone. In the worst case scenario that you don't have any of these, make sure to mute your computer's speakers when you take the floor, to avoid terrible feedback loops. In any case, please try and procure proper headsets like the recommended ones for your next meeting. And remember, all the other options suggested here should be temporary and will make it more difficult to hear and interpret you. Please also turn on your video. It helps other participants feel less alienated, and interpreters rely a lot on non-verbal visual cues and body language. Please make sure you are clearly visible from the waist up, with your light source in front of you, not behind you. When setting up, please find a quiet room in your house or office. Switch off all other applications on your computer and sound on all other devices, and plug your computer in to ensure optimal performance. During the meeting itself, please speak slowly and clearly, directly into your microphone, and avoid touching the microphone or shuffling papers close to it. And remember to mute when you have finished speaking. Please do bear these tips in mind for this and future meetings. RSI is much harder than in-person meetings for interpreters and can be challenging for participants as well. Unfortunately, there is always a risk interpretation may have to be suspended if the sound is not good enough. Please bear with us as we are doing our best. Here are some headsets recommended by Interprify. You should have received this presentation already, but if not, get in touch so it can be shared.
Now, some brief tips on the use of the platform. To request the floor, click on the green raise hand icon. This will place you in the speaker's queue. When the chair accepts your request, the following message is received. Chairperson allowed your streaming. Select video here in order to stream both audio and video. When you are given the floor, your microphone and camera icons will turn blue. Click on the red disconnect button to pass control back to the chair. To change the interpretation language during the meeting, select the language of your choice by pressing the select button at the top left-hand side of your screen. The chat window allows you to communicate with all the other meeting participants and support staff. A private chat option is also available. Use this function when requesting technical support or to talk privately to other delegates. To start a private chat, click on the arrow icon next to a participant's name, type your message, and press send. To raise a point of order, please write in the event chat. In case you encounter connection or other issues during the meeting, press the Restart All Lines icon, the two rotating arrows above the raise hand icon. If this fails, try refreshing your browser, clearing your browser history, allowing camera and microphone on your browser, or finally restarting your computer. We thank you for your time and wish you a very successful meeting.
Thank you very much. And I now hand it over to the co-chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. Thank you for giving us another tutorial at the beginning of this session. Good morning, delegates. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the second day of our online session of this first global meeting of the National Focal Points. When we ended yesterday, we were on agenda item 4B on priority areas. And in just a moment, I'm going to turn over to my co-chair, Marcelo, to summarize yesterday. But just before then, a couple of housekeeping items. First, yesterday, we asked for, if you have any text edits to the modalities document, to please send those in to the Secretariat. We ask that you send those in by 7 p.m. Nairobi time today. That's just in a few hours from now, to allow the Secretariat the time to compile those so that we have them at the beginning of tomorrow's session. And then we note on the timing that we were making significant progress yesterday, and so we may end up moving into the beginning of tomorrow's session by the end of today's session if we continue moving at a good pace. So with that, let me turn it over to Marcelo to summarize the good progress that was made yesterday.
Thank you, team. Distinguished delegates, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yesterday, we started the first global meeting of national focal points to the Montevideo Program 5. After some opening remarks of the Executive Director and the organizational matters, we cover Agenda Item 3, National Focal Points, and the Agenda Item 4, Implementation of the 5th Program for the Development and Periodic Review of Environmental Law. With respect to Sub-Item 4A, Status of Implementation of Activities and Funding. Also, we start the consideration of the Agenda Sub-Item 4B, Priority Areas for Implementation. That is, as you know, is very important because the paragraph 6B1 of the Montevideo Program 5 tasks national focal point to identify priority areas for the implementation of the program. For this online session, national focal points had been asked to identify a limited number of focuses and feasible priority areas for the implementation to enable substantive activities under the program to start. The proposal was to focus in one or two topics proposed in the document of the Secretariat. We received intervention of several delegations with an important support to the list of priority areas identified in the Secretariat document. In particular, air pollution as the first priority area. Now we turn the floor to my co-chair to continue the discussion with all of you.
Thank you,
Team, please.
Marcelo. Thank you, Marcelo. And thank you for that nice summary of the progress that we made yesterday. We did make considerable progress, even while we experienced a few technical issues that resulted in brief interruptions. And, those technical issues are a reminder of the core wisdom underpinning this first virtual session of the first global meeting, that we need to focus on where we can quickly find common ground and consensus on the core elements needed to start the Montevideo program. And we made considerable progress yesterday. From the summary and from my own hearing of comments, it appeared that we were moving very rapidly towards consensus around air pollution as an initial priority area to start. Of course, we have more delegates to hear from today, and we will turn to those. I believe that we had indicated that Guinea would be the first one today. We were trying to connect yesterday at the end of the session, and also invite Switzerland if we had some technical problems here in Switzerland earlier in the day yesterday, and would like to give Switzerland a priority time this morning if those technical issues have been resolved. So let me turn the floor over to Guinea.
Dear Co-Chair, with your permission, Guinea is no longer.
Oh, okay. Delegates, please do raise your hands if you are interested in speaking. And again, I indicated that if Switzerland would like to take the floor, we'd be happy to see if the technical issues have been resolved. Yes, Switzerland, I see your hand is up. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Correspondant national suisse, est-ce que vous m'entendez? You hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Messieurs les co-présidents, mesdames et messieurs les délégués.
Co-chairs, delegates, I'd like to thank the chair for having accepted to preside over this meeting. Switzerland would also like to thank the Secretariat for the work that they've done in organizing this meeting and for the work done so far despite the very difficult context. The creation of the platform seems to be a very good thing that has been successfully conducted by the Secretariat. We find that the list that has been provided for priority is satisfactory and a good basis for discussions. The list needs to be reduced, and that because of problems we believe that in feasibility, we also need to make sure that activities are focused on the obtention of results and concern also other areas of the environment, all areas of the environment. Switzerland will be providing more detailed comments in writing concerning the list, and we will sending in remarks for the up-and-coming session in person. As for the initial priority list, we back the proposal made by the Secretariat for air pollution. We believe that nationally there are things that need to be done. The Montevideo program should be able to obtain a real impact at the national level. It's important for us to share experiences in this area. We also need to be able to continue the work that has started by the Secretariat based on the questionnaire and the information we obtained concerning national legal frameworks, and Switzerland will certainly back all of this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Switzerland. Our next speaker is Uruguay. Uruguay, you have the floor.
Buen día. ¿Me escuchan?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to greet all of the delegates and members of the Bureau, and I'd like to thank them for the work. I would like to thank Mr. Cusillas for his work yesterday. We would like to make a comment concerning the document on priority areas. It was presented yesterday. Particularly, we agree with the selection, the initial selection, and which identified air pollution as being the main priority, the first priority. The sound, unfortunately, is not good enough. There's a lot of background noise. For the interpretation, it's very difficult.
Dicha norma tiene por objetivo la protección del ambiente a través de la prevención de la contaminación del aire mediante el establecimiento de objetivos.
We have a new legislative regulation in my country to control air pollution. We have established maximum limits for emissions, and these also cover greenhouse gases. The implementation of this new regulation is a challenge for Uruguay, and we hope to be able to make use of the back or support provided through the Montevideo program. That being said, Mr. Chairman, it's important to point out just how important the implementation of the Montevideo program is for this decade, and we need to consider other areas such as access to justice, among others. Because it is part of environmental law, and because I'm terribly sorry, the interpreter just is not able to hear well enough the speaker. The quality of her sound is insufficient. Mr. Co-President, we join the consensus that has been shown, that indicated by the delegates, and we will be making contributions in the discussions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uruguay. And let me take this moment as a time to remind all speakers that if you have your notes in writing, to please send those along to the Secretariat to help make sure that the Secretariat captures all of your comments. Our next speaker is St. Lucia. St. Lucia, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, co-chairs Timothy Epp and Dr. Cusillas. Thank you very much. Yesterday, when St. Lucia indicated that we welcome air pollution as an initial priority area. We wish to add 2 more areas. We do not want to extend the list, but we think that these 2 areas are critical to not only St. Lucia, but also to Antigua and the rest of the Caribbean region. And those areas are priority area 6, which is public participation, access to information, and access to justice, which is in keeping with the new agreement, regional agreement. This is the Escazú agreement. And we welcome the actions which are at A to E to effect that strategy. We also wish to see as a priority area 8, strengthening education and training in environmental law, and in particular, empowering people and communities, strengthening the institutional capacity of countries to address environmental matters. These are the 2 other areas we want to add as initial priority areas, with your permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, St. Lucia. Do we have any additional delegates who would like to take the floor? I'll give a moment or 2 for hands to be raised. And while we're waiting for that, let me reflect and make the observation that the 5th Montevideo Program on the Development and Review of Environmental Law, at its heart, has a bold and innovative vision that environmental law development programs can be achievable, clearly defined, measurable, verifiable, and results-oriented, with goals for a decade around which financial resources and partnerships can be rallied. And I commend you all for thinking in those terms of how our initial priority areas can be structured as results-oriented and achievable. And thank you for everyone's comments so far. And I see now that, let me check the notes here, that Madagascar, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the co-chairs. Can you hear me? As the representative for Madagascar for the Montevideo Program 5, I'd like to thank everyone involved in convening this meeting. As far as priority areas for the program, they reflect the needs of Madagascar, specifically when it comes to the strengthening of the capacity of actors. Our National Magistrates Institution has, in fact, developed their curricula, their training program to take into account this as subject, and has published a legal manual to be used by magistrates, by lawyers in Madagascar. Madagascar would like to closely collaborate with all actors with a view to build capacities of magistrates, of lawyers, and also of the community so that we can better protect the environment. In addition to that priority area, Madagascar will be communicating more comments on the other priority areas, namely air pollution and biodiversity. That being said, I wish us all much success with our work.
Thank you, Madagascar. And our next speaker is Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Co-Président. Est-ce que vous me recevez?
Good day, Mr. Co-Chairs. Can you hear me?
Okay. Merci.
Thank you. Burkina Faso salutes the convening of this meeting of focal points for Montevideo Program 5. Burkina Faso believes that the priority areas proposed by the Secretariat correspond to the reality and the needs of Burkina Faso when it comes to regulations, this specifically air pollution, and also when it comes to the one on good governance, when it comes to biodiversity. Burkina Faso, when it comes to the transfer of waste, used furniture, used vehicles, for example, used clothing, used tools or utensils, should also be given particular attention as an emerging issue, should be given attention by all of the international community. In addition to national legislation, wouldn't it be appropriate to develop an international convention that would cover used goods, the transfer of used goods? So we are very favorable to collaborating with all countries to exchange experience, but also to learn more about the mechanisms, operational mechanisms, and other mechanisms that other countries use to control air pollution and also to protect the environment in general. I'd like to thank the Secretariat for providing this space for us to meet, despite the technical difficulties. And I wish you all much success with your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. I do not at this point see any additional hands raised to speak. And I'm wondering whether, I recognize Argentina. Please, Argentina, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our colleagues. I'm speaking on behalf of Argentina. We hope that priority areas 2 and 3 are also given importance. I'd like to back what was said by our distinguished colleague from Uruguay concerning the work needed on priority area number 6, which concerns community participation, access to justice. When we hope that principle number 10 of the Rio Convention will take into account, of the Rio Declaration will be taken into account. All of these subjects are interrelated, and we believe that they need to be applied in a comprehensive and balanced way. It is important to maintain dialogue, cooperation, raise awareness, etc. We also need to build a capacity at local, national, regional, and international levels. And to that end, I'd like to clarify that Argentina has contributed significantly to the Iguazu document, and that, in fact, is the first regional treaty for. It is an instrument that contains paragraphs that protects the human rights defenders working in environmental issues. Argentina specifically believes that this treaty is a key to protecting the rights of all inhabitants to be able to benefit from a healthy environment. The Argentinian government is engaged in protecting human rights and dealing with the post-pandemic context, and we want to develop solutions that are sustainable. We have a platform to promote collaboration and to exchange mechanisms, national mechanisms. We hope, and we can see that there are close ties between the Iguazu Treaty and the Montevideo program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate from Argentina. Next, Palestine, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. مساء الخير للجميع. فلسطين قد أكدت في الأمس على أهمية موضوع تلوث.
Palestine yesterday pointed to the importance of the fight against air pollution. Can you hear me?
فلسطين أكدت في الأمس على أهمية موضوع تلوث الهواء.
Yesterday, I mentioned that we have given importance to air pollution. We'd like to repeat that transboundary crime has to be given specific importance, especially when we're talking about the transfer or traffic of hazardous waste, specifically when we're talking about waste where air is a vector. We also need to be specifically attentive to illegal traffic in animals and flora. We, Palestine, believe that this is a very important issue and that merits international and regional cooperation. We need to establish instruments that can be used to deal with these crimes. Furthermore, Palestine believes that the experience at national level and of institutions, specifically in the legal area and in the application of environmental law, are very important subjects, and we would like to contribute to the dissemination of this type of experience and knowledge to others. We ourselves have information that we can contribute. We believe that all of the areas that are covered by the document, the priority areas document, are all very important. They have been identified, in fact, by our national counterparts. In order, in fact, to be able to work on these priority areas, we need an execution plan for implementation. And we believe that such an execution plan, as well as the relevant interventions, could be one of the more important areas that could be, or one of the more important things that the Compliance Steering Committee could undertake, and that, of course, in cooperation with member states. We, of course, believe that this treaty needs to be, or this document needs to be, this program needs to be implemented as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Palestine. Sierra Leone, you have the
floor. Good morning, good afternoon. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our co-chairs and distinguished delegates. Sierra Leone would like to say that all the priority areas identified in the document are very, very important to the implementation of the Montevideo program. But as a country, we believe that we need to prioritize in the implementation of the areas that have been identified so far. And that is what we have done as delegates across the world to agree with the secretariats in identifying air pollution as a specific and urgent priority area to deal with. And we also aware of the fact that the program is constrained in terms of financing. So, which means that we have to be focused on how we identify the areas and how we focus on the implementation. I would just want to add that the delegate from Palestine mentioned transboundary crimes and air pollution. So I would like to suggest that in dealing with air pollution as a priority area for the first intervention of the Montevideo program, focus has to be made. Attention has to be focused on transboundary air pollution. How do we address it? How do we deal with it? So, and secondly, we'll also want to see how countries who have already developed legislation, advanced legislation in the control of air pollution, will share those legislative framework for a country like to learn from them, because as I said yesterday, as a country, we have not specific air pollution legislation. So we look forward to countries who have developed their air pollution legislations and who also have some good practices so that we can start the ball rolling in our country. So we are suggesting that we limit our priority areas to a specific area, and which is the air pollution, and let us trash this one and see how we can move forward with the other ones in the coming years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sierra Leone. And I greatly appreciate those remarks and on focusing on air pollution. I remind all delegates that one of the thoughts here is that since we're doing this as a virtual meeting, it's just not possible for us to fully negotiate all of the important priority areas to address during the decade. But it's also critically important that we give the Secretariat the instructions needed to start this program. And so by choosing air pollution, as there's been much consensus around it, as an initial priority area, we are not precluding the other areas, but instead giving the Secretariat what it needs in order to start work on a plan of action. Panama, you are our next speaker. You have the floor.
Gracias, presidente, copresidente.
Thank you so much, Chair. Co-chair, should I say. Can you hear me? Well, very well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. I should like to start by conveying my gratitude to you for the outstanding organization of this meeting. We'd already said this yesterday, but again, thank you to the Secretariat, and welcome to all delegations present with us today. We, for one, entirely agree with the priority areas which were identified, as we said yesterday. However, we would like to qualify one element. We would like to see this included, or the following included, in the priority areas. We're referring to priority area number 3, the biodiversity crisis. We would like to see this program focus on this field. We're referring here to the erosion of habitats, natural habitats, and this, of course, is related to connectivity, which is so essential for biodiversity, especially within the framework of countries which have such diverse, rich biodiversity as we have in Latin America. So it would be very important here to also include, and I believe the delegate of Palestine rightly suggested this, to include the issue of the trade in wildlife and so forth, which of course has an impact on diseases such as COVID. We're all familiar with this. This element should be studied, should be made a priority, for it is urgent. Urgent to prevent the spread of new pandemics of zoonotic origin. And of course, commerce in such, whether it's legal or illegal, must be studied, and there needs to be a human element as part of that study. In Panama, we have carried out analysis within the framework of the pandemic regarding the situation in terms of legislation, current legislation, should I say, in this field. And we have found that our legal frameworks are lacking. They require updating. And we are certain it must be the same for other countries. And this is why we believe that within the framework of Priority Area 3, all of these issues should be studied as priorities to ensure that we rise up to the challenge of the global situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Panama. And as I currently do not see any additional hands raised, let me propose a path forward for us. The Secretariat had very helpfully included in one of the pre-meeting documents a annex that could be adopted on air pollution as an initial priority area. That document is in UNEP/ENV.LAW/MTV5/GNFP.1/4. And so we could move forward by adopting that proposed text for an initial priority area of action, and then reflect the others in the meeting report so that all speakers' comments are reflected on what are priority areas that folks have identified. But since we have clear consensus, it seems to this chair at least, around air pollution as an initial priority area that we should undertake, that we can give the Secretariat that instruction. I now see that we have an additional flag up. So Qatar, you have the floor.
الو السلام عليكم تسمعونني؟
نسمعك. With regards priorities, as other countries indicated priorities, one of our top priorities is the air pollution. We have two kinds of air pollution as a result of climate change and also air pollution due to the chemical substances. It needs to be well considered because this will be in favor of the countries if they set this as a top priority. Several countries several countries, when they review the 5 pollutants and also the other components and the ingredients of air pollution need to be well considered. The objective of this is to have a good tackling of this. We have indoor and outdoor air pollution. We usually consider outdoor pollution more than we do consider the indoor air pollution. We need all people to be safe and sound and lead healthy life. So we have also to look into the wastes, chemical wastes. All these are of the things that have an impact on countries, especially with regards wastes. We need a good management of wastes to improve the environment. Water pollution. This is a significant factor. The sea pollution affects all the living the living organs within the oceans. There is an international legislation, and we set up regulations on this topic. In our countries, we rely on the sea, on the water sea, and we desalinate seawater. So if we preserve these two types of our resources, that would be recommendable, and we have to stress and underscore these two factors. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, I do not see any additional hands raised. I, of course, am keenly aware of some of the limitations of a virtual meeting discussion, so I don't want to move too quickly to closing off this topic, and would like to give additional time if there are any additional speakers who would like to speak. And then let me turn again to the chair's proposal that we reflect all comments in the meeting report so that the priority areas that folks have identified can be taken up at our in-person meeting next year, and that we gavel an agreement on the annex text on the priority area of air pollution. And let me pause. I see Sri Lanka, you have the floor.
Good day, co-chairs and delegates. Hope you can hear me. So thank you for giving the opportunity to Sri Lanka to participate in this program. You have identified all the key important areas as 8 priority areas. With the recent experience which all the other countries are facing with the current environmental crisis pertaining to the climate change, biodiversity depletion, and air pollution, I can say that those are more important areas that everyone should understand. We have to take some precautions and actions as well to already happen crisis. And also, Sri Lanka would like to point out significance of other 2 priority areas as well. Priority area 8, which is about the education and training pertaining to environment law, and priority area 6, which is public participation, access to information, and access to justice as well. Because these areas are the key areas which we can use to enhance the engagement of the public and to establish the environmental justice as well. Yesterday and today, several delegates pointed out the importance of the air pollution, which is the main or initial priority area of this program as well, and also the legal aspect of it. Sri Lanka would like to highlight the importance of the marine pollution under the pollution crisis, which creates a huge impact in several other areas being an island. Thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Sri Lanka. United Arab Emirates, you have the floor. UAE, you seem to have disappeared. give a few moments to see if we have some technical issues that need to be resolved. There you go, UAE, you have the floor. I am not able to hear you, UAE. While we're waiting to see if UAE can connect in a way that we can hear, let me remind all delegates that if for any reason you're not able to fully present your comments, or would like to make sure that we capture it correctly, please do send a written version of your comments to the Secretariat so that it can be included in the report. And I see we have UAE back. You may have the floor. This of course is why it's particularly challenging to negotiate a outcome document here, and why our goal, our objective is to give sufficient instructions around a consensus area, priority area, to allow the Secretariat to start between now and the time that we can hold a face-to-face meeting where we can fully discuss all of the priority areas. UAE, I see that you are back. Let's try again. You have the floor. That is unfortunate. I note that the chat refers to the support from Yunnan and the Interprify folks. Does any other delegate want to have the floor while we try to give UAE some time to work through these technical issues? Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Just to make sure that what we're agreeing upon here is the annex of document /4 regarding priority areas, including possible new areas that were not mentioned in the document. For example, Brazil proposed environmental financing as a priority area, both through the online survey and through our statement made yesterday. We'll be discussing them in detail at the face-to-face meeting. Is that it? Just for clarification. Thank you.
Yes, for clarification, the chair's proposal is that we gavel the consensus around the annex document, which selects an initial priority area on air pollution, and that the other very important areas that many of you have raised, that there are a number of folks have raised, repeatedly raised additional issues, as well as the one that you raised, Brazil, that we would recognize those in the report of this meeting or this session and take them up for more fulsome negotiation next year when we can meet face to face. And Brazil, did you want to take the floor again after that clarification, or was that sufficient? All right. I see no further hands up, and we haven't had a chance to hear from UAE. Give a few more moments. And let me ask again, would we have consensus around the Annex document as an initial area for designating for the Secretariat to begin on, and recognize all of the other valuable contributions and suggested priority areas, many of which were repeated a number of times. But I think all spoke in support of air pollution. So it seems like we have broad-based consensus on that one. Pausing here to allow anybody to object. And at this point, I see my co-chair is nodding, so I would like to gavel the consensus approval of the Annex on air pollution. And, once again, remind folks to please not only submit comments on other priority areas through the discussions that we've had this morning, but to also submit those in writing to the Secretariat so that we can reflect them in the report accurately in the words that you choose, and so that we can take them up when we meet in a face-to-face format. And United Arab Emirates, I see that you are back with your hand up. Please, you may have the floor.
السلام عليكم جميعا. صوت واضح? Is my sound clear? Can you hear me well? She asks.
Yes, thank you.
With regards priorities proposed by Emirates, as a matter of fact, recently UAE adopted our work program, and it is one of a kind in our country and at the Gulf region level. The policy contains numerous priority areas, environmental priority areas, and we would like to share them with you. And perhaps this would be useful for the environmental law. One of them is the repercussions and the consequences of the climate change, preservation of the nature and the environment, enhancement of the air quality and of food, and also sustainable agriculture products, and the sustainability of the local and national livestock, as well as the national natural resources, and also the enhancement of the integrity and safety of the chemical substances or products. Thank you so much.
Thank you, UAE. And in case you didn't hear it while you were working to resolve the technical issues, please also submit your written comments to the Secretariat. There's an email address in the chat, which will enable us to reflect your comments in the report of the meeting, so that we can record the additional priority areas. And let me also pause here at this moment and suggest that the LEAP platform that the Secretariat shared with us on the first day is an extraordinary tool for those of you who already have resources to share with others, for us to begin now in sharing resources, so that this program can really get off to a rapid start. And it's great that we have a consensus around a priority area to move forward with. And let me at this point turn over to my co-chair to take us into our next part of the agenda.
Thank you very much, team. Muy buena moderación. Realmente hemos logrado priorizar áreas y eso es muy importante.
Thank you so much. we were able to determine priority areas, and this, of course, is essential within the framework of our work. Ladies and gentlemen, delegates, let us now move on to agenda item 5. Partnerships and stakeholder engagement. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Very well. You will recall that in paragraph 4E of Montevideo Program 5, it states that the program will support collaboration and the promotion of partnerships across the United Nations and with other relevant entities, including civil society organizations, in the field of environmental law. We can also see other important references to partnerships within the framework of the program, including paragraphs 5C, paragraphs 6A, and 6D, which state that academics and eminent experts in the field of environmental law can be invited to events to assist in the implementation of the program, to ensure that this program is as appropriate and feasible as is possible. And this is why these partnerships with civil society, with the private sector, with academia, have a close link to the overall implementation of the program. This is one of the innovations of this new mold for the Montevideo program. And as Tim already said yesterday, we are facing a reality which is a complicated one. We do not have sufficient time within this online framework, these online types of sessions, to devote the necessary attention to such an important topic. What we will have to do is to determine the modalities regarding the implementation of these partnerships within the framework of the implementation of the Montevideo program. Time is of the essence. Time is tight. But what I will do is invite the Secretariat to share with us its point of view and to make any proposals that they might have to enable us to continue this work in successful partnerships. And after that, I will give the floor to all the various delegations. But for now, Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Distinguished participants, as ably noted by the Co-Chair, partnerships and stakeholder engagement really are at the core of this program and are instrumental in achieving its goals and vision. It bears repeating that unlike the previous Montevideo programs, we now see partnerships hardwired very much into the DNA of this program. And as referenced by the co-chair, we can see various references to the types of partners that this program is mandated to collaborate and cooperate with in implementation, be they secretariats of MEAs, UN entities, civil society organizations, academics, and the private sector. So with that in mind, since the start of this program, the Secretariat has undertaken various steps to foster those partnerships and stakeholder engagement opportunities. These include an interagency dialogue that was held in 2019, where a group of legal officers network for the Montevideo program was established. We have provided various bilateral briefings to different partners on the program across 2020 and 21. We have increased stakeholder access to information and participation in the program through LEAP, UNEP LEAP, the digital backbone to this program, which was launched yesterday. And we've actively sought partners and stakeholders to join hands with us in implementing this program. And one of the key ways that we have done that is to launch something called the Partner of the Program Initiative. So, distinguished participants, the success or failure of this program will in part be informed by the strength of this ecosystem of partners that will be working together in implementation of the program. And so we would like to use this opportunity today to invite partners to register as a partner to the program. Those partners can be MEA secretariats, UN agencies, civil society organizations, academics, universities, private sector organizations. Any of those entities are officially invited to register as a partner to the program. Now, how to do that? We have set out on UNEP Leap the details of how you can register. There is a form that can be filled out. It's very simple and straightforward. You can also email the Secretariat or contact us at any time. And you will then be registering your interest to be a partner in the program, and we can explore how to work together with you in implementation going forward. With that, Co-Chair, let me stop here and hand it back to you.
Thank you, Andy.
That was very clear, very concise. This is a very important subject. We want our sessions and our activities take into account substantive issues so that we can look at the legal foundations that are very base of the program. I now am going to, for that purpose, open the floor to delegations who would like to talk about ties with other entities, civil society organizations, academic organizations that they believe can contribute to our work, that can work with us. We're going to start with political and regional groups, the representative countries, the secretariats, and other independent participants. So I'm now opening the floor up for comments. I'm not opening the floor up for comments for any delegation who would like to contribute, intervene. I can see that Sierra Leone has asked for the floor. Ibira Camara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor again once more. Let me see. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor once again. This is a very crucial aspect in the implementation of this Montevideo Environmental Law Program 5. And as a country, we see partnerships on 4 levels. 1, at global level, and the next stage is regional level. The next one is national level, and the final one is subnational level. How do we make sure that we interlink all of this level to ensure that information flows from the global level to the regional level to the national level and to the subnational level? Sierra Leone would like to suggest that through the Secretariat and also this, the subcommittee for implementation, that we have a working document developed on how we should build on partnership for implementation. And then we will also want to see how that working document, that global working document, can be used to mainstream partnership at the regional level and also at the national level onto the sub-national level. Sierra Leone will also want to suggest that in building partnership, and this suggestion is made based on our experience, our peculiar experience in Sierra Leone, the security sector is very key in the implementation of environmental rule of law, particularly in Africa. Okay, so how do we ensure that the security sector is also involved into this partnership? I'll give you an example for our country, and I assume this is also most of the case for African countries. As compliance and enforcement officers, when most of the time we go to the fields to ensure compliance and enforcement of environmental law, in most cases we meet security forces in those places supporting illegal activities. So if we want to move on with partnership, the security sector is very key. And what we have done in Sierra Leone as a country, we have started decentralizing mechanism in bringing in the security sector in the implementation of environmental law. So we have developed MOUs for the highest security committees at regional level to ensure that they take charge in the implementation and enforcement of environmental law. So if we can develop these similar mechanisms at regional level to make sure, for example, at the global level, UNEP and the Secretariat coordinate with multilateral environmental agreements. UNEP and the Secretariat coordinate with other economic and social international organizations in the implementation of this program. The same can be mainstreamed at the regional level and also at the local level. So we are suggesting that the Secretariat, with support from the Committee for Implementation, develop a working document that clearly defines how this partnership can be forged ahead so that we are certain on how we are moving forward with this. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor once more.
Gracias, Sierra Leone.
We'd like to thank Sierra Leone. We are now going to give the floor to the representative from Switzerland, Vincent. Dear co-chairs, delegates, as appropriately pointed out by the Secretariat, partnerships are crucial. It's crucial in Switzerland's eyes. The Montevideo program cannot act in an isolated manner. We need to be able to cooperate with relevant UN agencies, but also with other organs or institutions involved in multilateral treaties. If we take into account the directive for the implementation of the Montevideo Program 5, it talks about avoiding duplication with other programs. We need to be able to work with entities that have the resources necessary to contribute to the success of the program. We believe that the private sector, civil society, universities, and the legal community. We'd like to thank the Secretariat for the work that they have done. We believe that the Secretariat needs to be continue to be proactive. The LEAP platform is an excellent tool that has been developed for further cooperation among states. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Suiza.
Thank you very much, Switzerland. I recognize Palestine. The floor is yours.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. إن البند الخامس الخاص بالشراكة وإشراك أصحاب المصلحة.
Item number 5, with regards to partnerships, is extremely important.
والأهداف الخاصة في هذا البرنامج.
Specifically with 4 priority areas in the implementation of priority areas. And relevant activities. I believe that the Secretariat for the program should identify links and develop links for partnerships. These secretariats should also look at how capacity building could take place at regional and national levels. We need to provide a 404 support to the states for the implementation of the objectives of the program. Clearly, these efforts have to include all partners, civil society, universities, the legal community, and the public and private sectors. These partnerships are ways of working together to look at the problematics that we are having to deal with, specifically when it comes to the environment at national and regional level. This type of bringing together of different parties will enable us to develop the tools necessary to correct our problems. We also need to identify additional objectives, which is one of the reasons we are holding this meeting. Palestine can send in writing our proposals for these new objectives or additional objectives. Thank you. Thank you, Palestine. I would like now to give the floor to Kate Wilson, the representative for St. Lucia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Kusilas, and Mr. Timothy Epp, and Madam Rapporteur, not forgetting. St. Lucia welcomes the proposals made for partnerships and stakeholder engagement. In fact, we are very pleased because a lot of the actions that we see listed under that strategy at E from A to right down to the end are sentiments which were expressed by St. Lucia in our needs assessment survey. In particular, St. Lucia wants to highlight one of the main areas, which is provision of support to judicial institutions and to develop networks, for example, through the development of a judicial portal to facilitate information and data exchange among judges and legal stakeholders. We also would like to flag the importance of partnership and training and links with bar associations, institutions, that is legal clinics and institutions, the media in particular, and to business areas. So we were suggesting perhaps that we could now, as I think it was, which country was it? I think one of the earlier countries mentioned the development of a working document. And I think this is a great idea as to how we can move forward. We can put all those actions and strategies in a working document as to how we can extend that partnership and stakeholder engagement. But we are thinking also in terms of internships to see young aspiring environmental lawyers spend some time perhaps with the UNEP Law Division also to create synergies between the Montevideo program and business areas that are in the business of environmental projects. And we want to start with perhaps developing a list of those key business areas, those key media houses, key academic institutions and research institutions, which we can develop those synergies with. We also, and very quickly, I don't want to take too much time, but also develop synergies with different working groups which have similar goals to ours. I remember some years ago, there was the working group towards a global pact for the environment, which had a similar goal of developing environmental law. So if we identify those working groups that are doing the same thing, so we don't duplicate efforts, but together we can collaborate to improve partnerships and stakeholders. And also, we want to look at a monthly or periodic, perhaps a television, radio, or social media platform where all those persons can exchange ideas. I remember there used to be the Nexus Dialogue, something similar to what the Nexus Dialogue format, so that we come together. Montevideo program comes periodically to update. I mean, I know we do it through the LIP platform, but also people would like to see they would like to see stakeholders and partners exchanging ideas, seeing the persons exchanging ideas, and to see the judges speaking with the lawyers and law students. So I think that's an idea we can explore. And finally, to invite research by law students and academic institutions, and to give them a platform. I'm not sure if we want to give them a platform through the LEAP platform, or if we want to create something separate for them, but to give them, particularly those that are doing the PhDs on environmental issues, to give them a platform to showcase their work, and also that we can involve them in this whole partnership thing. And finally, very quickly, toolkits, the development of toolkits. I know the Secretariat has done quite a lot of work in terms of the public awareness tools, but we want to see also from the stakeholder point of view perspective, and partnerships with businesses, that we develop toolkits for those areas in terms of how we move forward in developing and extending partnerships. So thank you very much, co-chairs.
Gracias, Santa Lucia.
Thank you very much, Santa Lucia. Thank you, Kate. We need ideas. We need to nourish our programs with activities. These ideas, these considerations are very much welcomed. I have on my list of speakers Burkina Faso. The floor is yours.
Merci.
I think we lost Burkina Faso.
Dear co-chair, with your permission, there was a connection issue.
Vamos entonces a pasar a Nigeria.
Let's move on to Nigeria. Nigeria has also asked to take the floor. And while we try to deal with Burkina Faso's problem, Mr. Ibrahim, the floor is yours. Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the co-chair, for giving me the floor this time around to talk. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. On the issue of partnership, just like my previous country representative said, that partnership is very, very key. The Montevideo program cannot operate in isolation. And so there's a need for us to build a very strong partnership if actually we're trying to achieve the mandate
Nigeria,
of Montevideo. You said?
Heard you. Could you check your microphone?
You muted me. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. I could hear you fine. I suspect that our co-chair Marcelo is having technical problems since his screen disappeared. Let me step in for just a moment here and please proceed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and co-chair. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to colleagues. I'm very delighted to be given the floor this time around to talk. Just like the previous speakers and delegates have spoken on the issue of partnership. Partnership is very important and very key to the success of Montevideo. As a project and a global project for us to get partnership, we have to look at other UN bodies and also other regional and sub-regional bodies that will help us in geared towards achieving the success of Montevideo. For instance, if we're looking at issue of capacity building on, let's say, wildlife trafficking, it would be right for partnership with places like in this issue of wildlife trafficking. Or if we're looking at biodiversity conservation, we can also partner or look at bodies like WABIC, that's the West African Biodiversity Conservation bodies. We can also look at NGOs which are into environmental issues, or civil-based organization, or community-based organization, or faith-based organizations. And also look at regional bodies like the African bodies like ECOWAS and the AU. So in essence, what we're trying to say is issue of partnership is very key and very important for the success of Nigeria as a country. We'll also develop a very strong partnership with Montevideo and the Secretariat and see to the success of this very project. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Nigeria.
I'd like to thank Nigeria. Let's go back to Burkina Faso. Let's see if they have managed to connect. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. The Burkina Faso would like to react to the partnerships issue or subject. We believe that municipalities are key, could be a key partners. We need to associate them in this list of partners. It is the city halls, in fact, that administrate the local surroundings, and they, in fact, can play a very determining role in protection and application of rules, specifically when it comes to air pollution. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is asking the speaker. Is asking.
We can hear you. Thank you.
As I said, we need to develop this partnership and capacity building capacities that should be focused on local communities, on municipalities, so that they can deal with pollution. Municipalities already have platforms. They have, for example, Clean Cities platforms, and we can use these platforms for exchanges, so we can get their ideas, and so that we can further promote cooperation among municipalities so as to achieve significant objectives. And this is what I wanted to say with respect to the creation of partnerships. Thank you very much.
I'm very sorry, I'm experiencing some.
If you would like, I could take over for a moment here. So it sounds like Marcelo is experiencing some technical difficulty. I'll take over the co-chair role, and I'll recognize Bangladesh. You have the floor.
Hello, do you hear me? Yes, thank you. Thank you, co-chairs, and thank you, all of the participants, delegations. Actually, I would like to discuss regarding the partnerships and stakeholder engagement because the environmental law, on any kind of law, the enforcement is under the government, and certainly this partnership, if it is very open, and in that case, we will have some complicacy to implement this law. During our survey, we, from the ministry, the government tried to invite all partners like civil society agencies, law experts, associations, and academics. And we discussed all our survey questionnaires, and we did have very good suggestions from him. So partnership engagement is perfect for this environmental law implementation under the Montevideo Environmental Law Program. But the question is how the partners like civil society, law professionals, academics are going to be the partner with the Secretariat. I suggest, just my perspective is that I appreciate this partnership to be established, but there is supposed to be a clear-cut idea from the Secretary, but I suggest that if the partnership from any specific country, the national level, so they're supposed to go through the government so that we check. But if the Secretary thinks that that is not very good, but they will have some what it is called rules regulation to check, and from the government we will suggest those partners to be included in this program. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, co-chairs.
Muchas gracias, Bangladesh.
Thank you so much, Bangladesh. For now, I see no further requests on the floor. Oh, yes, there is. I see Madagascar. Tayana, you have the floor. Yes, thank you so much, Co-Chair. Madagascar would like to speak to the partnership to stress the need for coordination amongst all actions that fall under this program, especially in terms of interaction between international institutions as focal point for the Global Commission for the Environment at the level of ICN. I would also like to stress this point. There should be synergy of action at a national level to avoid having action taken at national level alone, as there are already actions which has been prioritized by the Commission on Environmental Law, including in Madagascar, and we want to achieve a common goal in terms of compliance with the implementation of environmental law. We need to promote partnership between these international institutions to avoid duplication and to achieve our common goals. I thank you, sir.
Gracias, Madagascar.
Thank you, Madagascar. I cannot hear anything right now.
Creo que ahora sí me escuchan.
Can you hear me? Asks the co-chair. Thank you, says Madagascar. Can I take the floor now? Can you hear me? Thank you so much, co-chair. Well, Madagascar would like to speak to this partnership to stress the need for coordination between the actions undertaken within the framework of this program with the actions of international institutions such as the INCN as focal point for INCN, including the Global Commission for Human Rights in Madagascar. I would like to stress that point to ensure that that activities are implemented not only at national level but more coordinated, because there are activities that are prioritized by this convention, which is also active for the implementation of environmental law, and we believe that synergy of action undertaken between international institutions is of primary importance to achieve our common goal, namely to promote the implementation and compliance with environmental law. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madagascar. Vamos a darle la palabra.
Thank you so much, Madagascar. And I'm going to give the floor to the representative of Namibia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Namibia would like to speak to the issue of partnerships and stakeholder engagements. In terms of partnerships, we do believe that there is a need for effective implementation when it comes to implementing environmental laws. And in terms of looking at what has been achieved under IUC, and so far, there is still a need for us to look at capacity building in order to ensure that there is effective implementation with regards to environmental law. Mr. Chairman, I just want to bring to our attention that if there is a more coordinated approach in terms of global coordination, regional and national levels, and effective collaboration through these partnerships, leading to international, regional, or national organizational partners, it will be ideal, and it is of paramount importance that synergies is also created, and that we really look at a cohesive framework in order to ensure that we address all levels and include all stakeholders. I want to take a very classic example in terms of what we currently have under the third objective of the Convention of Biological Diversity, where we have the implementation of the Nagoya Protocol, and currently challenged on national levels, not only in Africa but on different national levels, challenged with issues of compliance simply because there is no proper coordinated frameworks in place on national level, on regional level, as well as on global level. It is a heavy subject under discussion, but the reality is that we also do not have adequate environmental lawyers that are capacitated with all these issues. So it is really important that in terms of international environmental law, we look at the framework of coordination and simultaneously look at capacity building in order to be responsive to effective implementation. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Namibia.
I'd like to thank Namibia. And I see Guinea requesting the floor. You have the floor.
Guinea creo que no se ha conectado.
Guinea, are you connected?
The connection. We're trying to reconnect it.
Chairman, we clearly have a problem with the connection, and we are attempting to reconnect Guinea.
Secretaría, sí tengo en línea a Costa de Marfil. Tal vez podríamos continuar.
I'd like to inform the Secretariat that I see Côte d'Ivoire online. Perhaps we could just give the floor to Côte d'Ivoire while we finesse Guinea's connection. Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor. Thank you, Co-Chair. I hope you can hear me. Regarding this point, Côte d'Ivoire would like to state that partnerships are essential for the success of our program insofar as they can facilitate and provide for the implementation of environmental law. And to do this, we believe that it would be interesting to identify the entities with which we can forge links of partnership. For example, enterprises but also the donors, the donor community. This problem, which we are examining, is in the case of Cote d'Ivoire, is the lack of funds for implementing environmental law. But more broadly speaking, it's a question which is of interest to all African states. So within the framework of these partnerships, we could forge partnerships with institutions which could provide us with the necessary funding for implementation, but also provide us with the ability to develop expertise at the national level, because we know that environmental law is a new form of law. So we should seek out the resources for the implementation of provisions in terms of environmental law and of all programs and projects which could be brought into play to participate in this. I believe that this point is of essential importance to us. So I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to reiterate our support to this. Thank you.
Desafortunadamente no he podido. Unfortunately, I cannot hear the last part of.
Now, unfortunately, I have not been able to listen to the last part of your statement. Can the Secretariat, at the very least, hear me? Thank you, says the Chair. We have Zambia now. Zambia, you have the floor.
To all distinguished delegates. As Zambia, we support the need to create partnerships and synergies, more so that we take the view that environmental protection and the effective implementation of environmental legislation is one that requires efforts. So the need for partnerships and synergies make the view that there is need to fully appreciate, clearly designate the specific responsibilities of the partners. For instance, we take note that in one sheets on partnerships, we have identified which partners can support the implementation of the program. And to effect, we state that we have that partners can be invited in the biannual global meetings of national focal points. Take the view that the use of the word is too broad and be more on the specific roles in order to ensure value in the partnership, and also to avoid overlap in terms of responsibilities. Just as in sharing our experience, for example, as a country, Zambia, with partnerships as civil society organizations, we have learned that most times the overall agenda of the partners may not always align with that of the other party. Because of the program, we take the view that as we enter into these partnerships and packages, it would be important that we establish common ground so that the implementation of the program is not derailed. I thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias, Zambia. Pasamos al representante.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zambia. We will now move on to the DRC. Kanga, you have the floor.
Dear Co-Chair, there was a connection issue. We kindly suggest to move forward to the next speaker while we solve the issue.
Continúo teniendo en lista a Congo.
Congo. I don't hear Congo.
Dear Co-Chair, there is an issue with the platform. We suggest to kindly move forward to the next speaker while we solve the issue. Thank you.
Could you write in the chat, we do, because I do not hear you.
Dear Co-Chair, the next speaker on the list is South Africa.
No.
I'm typing in the chat.
It's not the South African MP. No.
Marcelo and colleagues, we appear to be having connection problems and we apologize for that. While we sort that out, if we could take the liberty as Secretariat to ask the representative from South Africa to please take the floor.
I'm very sorry, Secretariat. I don't have sound.
Good afternoon.
Hello, I will for the time being.
Good afternoon and good morning to all the participants. I am speaking from South Africa. I'm the CEO of the South African Judicial Education Institute. We have we took that initiative with UNEP years ago to have a project that we called Greening the Judiciaries in Africa. I am mentioning this because we are talking about partnerships and stakeholder engagements. Our experience as the Secretariat of the African Judicial Training Network in Environmental Law in Africa is that partnerships are excellent on condition there is active participation, there is a resource mobilization, and there is commitment from members. Our experience is that we meet in platforms like this, we speak, we commit, but we don't do once we get back to our countries. So I do support the issue of partnerships and stakeholder engagement on condition that we have commitment when we go back to our respective countries. I would also want to invite those that are from Africa, that they could, even through UNEP, they could, because we do have working relationship with UNEP, they could join the Africa Judicial Training Network on Environmental Law, where we could also exchange resources, and so that we don't reinvent the wheel as far as training in the judiciary space is concerned. Thank you, co-chairs.
Thank you. And my co-chair appears to be experiencing some sound issues, like I experienced technical issues on the first day. So I'm going to step in here, and I would like to recognize as our next speaker, the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. I know you were having some technical issues before as well. Have those now been resolved?
Je ne sais pas si vous m'entendez, Monsieur le Président, parce que moi, je vous entends. Voilà. Merci pour la parole, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for affording me the floor, Co-Chair. I would like to start by greeting everyone, as this is the first time that I take the floor. And we'd like to thank the Secretariat for having organized this work during this era of COVID-19, let's call it that. And as far as partnerships are concerned, we would like to recall that the application of environmental law, its implementation in our countries, depends on the public authorities, as was so rightly said by a previous speaker. And the question here is to determine how to play this regalian role, that of the state, alongside all the other partners. Another question, of course, is how to choose the partners. How will we select them, whether at national or international levels? It's important to identify these entities, those with whom partnerships can be forged. And at the national level, we would propose that it be the government who chooses the partners with whom the government feels it is comfortable working. Let us not forget the regalian role of the state. When the state or the government forges a partnership with the private sector, that is good, but only when it comes to certain aspects. Of course, when it comes to the application, implementation of environmental law, this is so, but this remains something which is very important. It's important to preserve the role of the state. This is not a role that it shares willy-nilly with other entities. No, states remain sovereign. They remain active in partnership with the private sector. And we say this based on what we've experienced. In the DRC, we have worked with partners, civil society. When it comes to the implementation, in fact, even when it comes to the adoption of certain measures, certain laws in terms of the environment, and we noticed that there was a trend where these organizations, entities, wanted to replace the state. So the state would continue to play its rightful sovereign role, but in partnership, true partnership, ensuring, of course, that the state always remain autonomous. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Creo que estamos en conexión nuevamente. En ese caso,
I think that we are connected again. And what we're going to do is we're going to close the list of speakers for today. And we are going to conclude with those who had already requested to speak. And we had Malawi. Malawi, you have the floor.
no, parece que el representante de Malawi no ha podido conectarse.
If the representative of Malawi was not in a position to connect himself. We will therefore move swiftly on to Colombia. Marjorie, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente, por darme la palabra. Tal como lo mencionó la secretaria.
Chair, thank you so much for giving me the floor. As the Secretariat indicated, Colombia attaches the greatest possible importance to the generation of synergies to optimize results within the framework of the Montevideo program. Can you hear me? Can I be heard? No? Very well. As I said, we attach greatest importance to the generation of synergies which enable us to optimize our work within the framework of the Montevideo program. Those who took the floor before us have already referred to the importance of building bridges between academia, civil society, and all other stakeholders. And we would like here to speak to the international partners. Significant efforts are required to ensure that we can implement international law and develop it, as well as developing national law. And this will require work within the framework of Resolution 73/333 of UNEP. It is clear that such bridges should enable us to increase our knowledge, both at national and international levels, and to populate the Montevideo program, which will enable us to develop it and to bolster it. Furthermore, it's important to make every possible effort to ensure that we draw the greatest possible benefit from those resources which are currently available to us. Thank you, Colombia, says the chair. Thank you, and I'm going to give the floor to the interpreter apologizes. We did not hear who the floor was being given to.
Dear Co-Chair, could you please repeat?
Qatar, si puede escucharnos, tiene la palabra.
Qatar, if you can hear us, please take the floor.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. بالنسبة المشاركة ذوي المصلحة وأيضا ذوي العلاقات
With respect to the partnerships
أو الشركات الخاصة أو أيضا
with stakeholders, with public and private entities and ministries, of course, we need to have cooperation with civil societies, but we also need to have that well-defined with limits. For example, stakeholders should not go on to areas that belong to the state. The state has its prerogatives. Work with universities should also be clearly delimited. Research needs to be also appropriate. In the case of partnerships with the private sector, we've worked, in fact, with many companies, private and public, small and big. In 2019, we published a manual a book on the state of the environment in our country. And this was a multi-sectorial effort. We were able to benefit from all sectors. We were able to benefit from the expertise within each of these sectors. When we work with NGOs, we also have to be careful. We have to establish rules for these partnerships so that there is no interference between the state and the civil society organizations, so that the state's prerogatives are preserved. There are decisions that belong to the states themselves. This is why the state needs to head implementation. The conventions for Basel, Stockholm, and other similar conventions that concern the environment have been created, making the states parties. We, of course, have to work on a global scale if we want to protect the environment, if we want to hand down that environment in pristine shape to future generations. I think we do have to work together, but everyone has to work together in their respective fields without any interference between stakeholders and the state. The state has to be able to exercise its prerogatives, its responsibilities and duties. This would be, in my opinion, the best way to implement the conventions to which states are party. The states needs to create regulations for these forms of cooperation so as to avoid anarchy. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. We had closed our list of speakers. We have one more speaker. I understand that there are persons who have asked for the floor and who were unable to take the floor because of technical problems. We are running over into the interpreter's time, so we won't be able to deal with that. I'm not going to give the floor to the last speaker of the day, the Children in Good Nature group. You have 2 minutes.
Chair, could you kindly confirm whether you can hear me?
We confirm that we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Chair, distinguished delegates, my name is Theresa Oberhauser from Germany, from the organization IAG European Student Forum. I am speaking here today on behalf of the Children and Youth Major Group of UNAP. We congratulate the Secretariat and the member states on the great discussions and talks today. And we congratulate you on recognizing the importance of stakeholder engagement and partnerships. Interdisciplinary working approach is what is going to help us in the upcoming years to come. The Children and Youth Major Group represents more than 300 youth environment organizations globally. Over the past 3 years, we have followed most CPR meetings and almost all negotiations on environmental law, among others, the processes around Resolution 7333, the ad hoc open-ended expert group on marine litter, and the preparation of this meeting here today. Children and youth represent more than 50% of the world population, and we would like to emphasize the important role children and youth have in working towards progress on environmental law. Projects like the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, led by UNAP and FAO, are leading by example. These projects show that partnership with children and youth is possible and is beneficial for everyone and drives the further agenda in a time that does not, in a manner that does not take immense further resources from UN entities. Children and youth around the globe are working closely with their governments in jointly using the possibilities of national law to protect the basis of life for future generations and to secure raw material supply that is also crucial for the economic situation of the country. Young entrepreneurs and social enterprises already design sustainable products and technology and conduct tree planting activities all over the world. Children and youth engagement has to be meaningful and rights-based. It is important to include children and youth throughout the whole policy process, from the ideation phase of a policy program to the implementation, as an equal partner and stakeholder in democratic stakeholder engagement processes, on the international level, but also in their representation in national youth councils and local policy processes. We need to meet young people where they are and build their capacity and empower them as implementers of the environmental policy, environmental governance and policy that we are conducting. Children and youth organize in different manners, right from community-based organizations, grassroots movements, to regional and international networks. Meaningful youth engagement has to be mainstreamed across environmental governance. We have made some great strides with the launch of the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform and the UN Decade of Strategy and others. But this is not enough. We are calling upon member states to establish support for meaningful youth engagement of children.
No quisiera interrumpirla.
Thank you.
Disculpe, pero...
Terribly sorry for interrupting you, but we didn't want to have to put an abrupt end to our session. We have a list of speakers that we're going to leave for tomorrow. I am now going to give the floor to the Secretariat so they can close this meeting.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. And on behalf of the Secretariat, let me apologize for the very tight constraints we are under regarding interpretation services, but thank you to the interpreters for the wonderful job that you are doing. Please let me start by sharing, Co-Chair, the speakers list for tomorrow, just for transparency. There is Sierra Leone, Congo, Colombia, Malawi, Guinea, and the United States. And then please let me just share some very brief housekeeping announcements. One, participants in the Africa Regional Group will know that there is an informal consultation happening today at 5:30. You will have received an invitation from Robert Wabanoha, the Regional Coordinator for Environmental Governance at UNEP. That's at 5:30 today. Secondly, please can we remind participants when you connect tomorrow to the platform to please observe the naming format, which is delegation and then name. That's very important to ensure we know who is requesting the floor. And then finally, if you are able, please do connect up to 1 hour before the start of the meeting tomorrow so that we can conduct the necessary sound checks to help mitigate some of the problems that we experienced today. But let me say on behalf of the Secretariat, thank you very, very much to the co-chairs for ably moderating today's session and to all participants for the very, very rich discussions. Mr. Co-Chair, I hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. In this case, meeting is adjourned to tomorrow at the same time. See you. Bye-bye.